The gravel crunched under Jason Mitchell's boots as he made his way to the fence line that needed repair before the afternoon rain. The 28-year-old wiped sweat from his brow, his calloused hands a testament to the decade he'd spent working alongside his father since choosing to stay on Whispering Pines farm rather than pursue engineering at the State University. As he hammered the last post into place, the unmistakable sound of a high-performance engine sputtering and then dying broke through the peaceful countryside ambience. Squinting against the morning sun, Jason spotted a sleek electric Porsche Taycan pulled over on the country road that bordered their property, steam rising ominously from beneath its hood. A woman in a tailored pantsuit stood beside it, frantically tapping at her phone. Little did Jason know that his decision to walk over and offer assistance would set in motion a chain of events that would transform not just his family's struggling farm, but the entire Oakridge community for generations to come. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Jason Mitchell had grown up watching his father Robert make sacrifices to keep Whispering Pines Farm alive. The Mitchell family had worked this land for 4 generations, dating back to Jason's great-grandfather, who had purchased the original 60 acres during the Dust Bowl era when everyone else was abandoning their farms. Through determination and innovative farming methods, he had transformed the parched soil into fertile ground that sustained the family through the Great Depression. This legacy of resilience and adaptation had been passed down through the generations, instilling in Jason a deep respect for both tradition and progress. Unlike his older sister Emma, who had embraced city life and now worked as a hospital administrator, in Chicago, Jason had always felt a profound connection to the land. While his high school classmates couldn't wait to escape the quiet rhythms of Oakridge, Jason found purpose in the changing seasons, the miracle of growth, and the satisfaction of harvest. His exceptional mechanical aptitude had emerged early. By 14, he was repairing farm equipment that left even experienced mechanics scratching their heads. His mother Martha often joked that Jason could fix anything with an engine, using just baling wire and determination. Despite his natural talents and deep love for farming, Jason had nearly left Whispering Pines after high school. His SAT scores had earned him a full scholarship to study agricultural engineering, and his parents had encouraged him to seize the opportunity. "The farm will always be here," his father had assured him, though the worry lines around Robert's eyes told a different story. 3 weeks before Jason was set to leave, a devastating tornado had torn through their property, destroying their main barn and damaging critical equipment. Without hesitation, Jason had deferred his acceptance and stayed to help rebuild. That temporary decision had gradually become permanent as the harsh realities of modern farming made it increasingly clear that his father couldn't manage alone. Now, at 28, Jason had become the driving force behind Whispering Pines operations. While Robert handled the business aspects and Martha managed their small farm store, Jason had gradually modernized their equipment and introduced more sustainable farming practices. His self-taught expertise had saved them tens of thousands in repair costs over the years, and his experimental drought-resistant planting techniques had helped them weather the increasingly unpredictable climate patterns that threatened farms throughout the region. Despite these innovations, Whispering Pines Farm, like most small family operations in the area, faced mounting challenges. Rising costs, corporate competition, and 3 consecutive years of below-average rainfall had strained their finances to the breaking point. The irrigation system needed a complete overhaul that they couldn't afford, and the loan application they'd submitted to the Agricultural Bank had been rejected last month. The 3rd such rejection in 2 years. Just yesterday, Robert and Jason had sat at their worn kitchen table, discussing whether they might need to sell their eastern fields to the corporate farming operation that had been steadily buying up neighboring properties. "We'll find another way," Jason had insisted, though his usual optimism had sounded hollow even to his own ears. His father had simply nodded, the weight of 4 generations of Mitchell family legacy heavy on his shoulders. This morning had started, like countless others before it, up before dawn, coffee from the pot Martha always had ready, and then out to complete the endless tasks that farm life demanded. Jason had been so focused on repairing the fence damage from last week's windstorm that he nearly missed the sound of the car engine failing on the road that ran alongside their property. When he looked up and saw the stranded motorist, his first instinct was to return to his work. County services would eventually respond to her call. But something about the woman's frustrated stance as she repeatedly held her phone to the sky, searching for a signal, reminded him of his mother's oft-repeated wisdom. The Mitchells never turn away from someone in need. Securing his hammer. In his belt loop, Jason made his way across the field toward the roadside. As he approached, he could see that the vehicle was no ordinary car, but a limited edition electric Porsche Taycan, worth more than their entire year's crop yield. Its owner, a woman perhaps in her early 40s, wore a perfectly tailored charcoal pantsuit that looked more appropriate for a corporate boardroom than the dusty backroads of rural Missouri. Her sleek, dark hair was pulled back in a precise bun, and even from a distance, her frustrated expression carried an intensity that suggested she was unaccustomed to having her plans derailed. "Having trouble?" Jason called as he approached, deliberately keeping his tone friendly but respectful. The woman turned, momentarily startled by his appearance. "You could say that," she replied, frustration evident in her voice. "This car was supposed to be the pinnacle of reliability. So much for German engineering meeting American technology." She gestured toward the steam, still rising from under the hood. "And there's apparently no cell service in this entire county." Jason smiled slightly at her exaggeration. "Coverage gets spotty between towers. Mind if I take a look? I'm pretty good with engines, even the electric hybrid ones." She gave him a skeptical once-over, taking in his work-worn jeans, faded plaid, shirt and mud-caked boots. For a moment, Jason thought she might refuse his offer, but then she stepped aside with a resigned sigh. "Be my guest, though I doubt this is something that can be fixed without specialized equipment. My assistant has already arranged for a tow truck, but they said it would be at least 3 hours. 3 hours is a long time to wait on a country road," Jason commented as he carefully released the hood latch. The sophisticated engine compartment revealed itself, a complex marriage of traditional and electric components. Most people would have been intimidated by such advanced technology, but Jason's eyes lit up with professional interest as he began a methodical inspection. "Cooling system failure," he diagnosed after several minutes of careful examination. "The main pump is intact, but you've got a fractured connection here that's leaking coolant." He pointed to a barely visible hairline crack in one of the components. The car's safety system shut everything down before the battery components could overheat. Smart design, actually. The woman had moved closer, watching his assessment, with increasing interest. "Can it be fixed?" she asked, her tone now more curious than dismissive. Jason nodded slowly. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." "Temporarily, yes. I've got some sealant back at the farm that should hold it until you can get to a proper service center. Won't be pretty, but it'll get you back on the road." "That would be..." She seemed to search for the right word. "Incredibly helpful. I have meetings in Springfield this afternoon that I can't miss." "Springfield's only about 40 minutes from here if you take the shortcut through Turtle Creek Road," Jason offered. "I can have you going in about half an hour if you're comfortable canceling that tow truck." For the first time, The woman smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from merely attractive to strikingly beautiful. "Thank you. I'm Alexandra Chen, by the way." "Alex." She extended her hand. "Jason Mitchell," he replied, briefly shaking her hand before wiping his own on his jeans. "My family's farm is just through those trees. I'll grab what I need and be right back." As Jason jogged back to the equipment shed, he couldn't help wondering what someone like Alexandra Chen was doing on the back roads of Oakridge. Everything about her, from the luxury vehicle to her polished appearance, suggested she belonged in a major city, not rural Missouri. The Porsche's license plates were from California, which only deepened the mystery. In the equipment shed, Jason quickly gathered the specialized epoxy sealant he'd developed himself, a formulation he'd created after commercial products had failed to hold up to the demands of farm machinery. He also grabbed several tools and a small container of distilled water to top off the cooling system once the repair was complete. When he returned to the roadside, he found Alex leaning against her car, her jacket now removed in concession to the warming spring day. She was scrolling through a tablet but looked up as he approached. "That was quick," she remarked. "One advantage of farm life, you learn to keep everything you might need close at hand," Jason replied as he set down his supplies and got to work. As he carefully applied the sealant to the damaged connection, he explained each step of the process, surprised to find Alex asking intelligent technical questions that revealed an unexpected knowledge of engineering principles. "You know your way around engines," he observed as he carefully tested the repair's integrity. Alex smiled slightly. "My father was a mechanic before he was anything else. He made sure I understood how things worked from the ground up. Said no, one should drive something they don't basically understand." "Wise man," Jason commented as he began refilling the cooling system with the distilled water. "This repair should hold for about 300 miles, but I wouldn't push it beyond that. There's a specialized service center for electric vehicles in Springfield, Carter Automotive. Tell them Jason Mitchell sent you, and they'll fit you in today. The owner's son was in my class at Oakridge High." Alex watched as Jason methodically completed the repair, closed the hood, and wiped his hands on a shop towel. "What do I owe you for this?" she asked, reaching for her purse. Jason shook his head. "Nothing. Happy to help." "I can't just let you fix my extremely expensive car for free," Alex insisted, a trace of confusion in her voice. Jason shrugged, a half smile playing at his lips. "Sure you can. That's how we do things around here. Besides, that sealant is my own formula. Consider yourself a test case for its effectiveness on high-end vehicles." Alex studied him for a moment, seeming to reassess her initial impression. "You created the sealant yourself?" "Had to. Commercial products weren't holding up to farm equipment demands, so I experimented until I found something that worked better," Jason explained without a hint of boasting. "Should start your car now and let it idle for a few minutes before hitting the road. Make sure the cooling system stabilizes." As Alex followed his instructions and the Porsche hummed back to life, without the concerning steam, she turned to face Jason with a thoughtful expression. "You know, Mr. Mitchell, most people would have just pointed me toward the nearest town, or at best made a phone call on my behalf. Your help today was—" She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "Unexpectedly significant." Jason wasn't quite sure how to respond to her formal tone. "Just being neighborly," he finally said. "Drive safely to Springfield, and remember Carter Automotive. As for Tim—" Alex nodded, then hesitated before getting into her car. "This farm of yours, Whispering Pines, is it?" she asked, gesturing toward the weathered wooden sign barely visible from the road. "That's right. Been in the family for 4 generations now." Something flickered across Alex's face. Interest, perhaps, or recognition. "Thank you again, Jason Mitchell of Whispering Pines Farm. I won't forget this." With that, She slipped into the driver's seat of the Porsche and with a quiet electric hum, pulled back onto the country road and accelerated smoothly out of sight. Jason watched until the sleek vehicle disappeared around a bend, then turned back toward the field, where his unfinished fence repair awaited. The encounter had been interesting, but he had chores to complete before the afternoon thunderstorms rolled in. He doubted he would ever see Alexandra Chen again. 3 days later, Jason was calibrating the planting equipment for the spring corn crop when his mother's voice called from the farmhouse porch. "Jason, phone call for you." Few people ever called the Mitchells' landline anymore. Most of their friends and business contacts used their cell phones, but the landline was still the most reliable form of communication on parts of the property where cell service wavered. "Who is it?" Jason called back as he wiped grease from his hands. "Someone from a company called Horizon Innovations," Martha replied, her expression suggesting she found this unusual. "Says it's important." Jason frowned slightly as he made his way to the house. Horizon Innovations was one of the largest agricultural technology companies in the country, known for their cutting-edge irrigation systems and sustainable farming equipment. They typically dealt with industrial-scale operations, not small family farms like Whispering Pines. Taking the old corded phone from his mother, Jason leaned against the porch railing. "This is Jason Mitchell." "Mr. Mitchell, this is Derek Williams, Executive Assistant to Alexandra Chen, CEO of Horizon Innovations," came the crisp, professional response. "Ms. Chen asked me to contact you regarding your assistance with her vehicle earlier this week." Jason's eyebrows shot up in surprise. The stranded motorist he'd helped was Alexandra Chen, the Alexandra Chen who had transformed Horizon from a modest startup into a billion-dollar agricultural technology powerhouse in just under a decade. The business magazines his father subscribed to had featured her repeatedly, highlighting her commitment to developing sustainable farming technologies accessible to operations of all sizes. "I see," Jason managed, trying to sound composed. "I hope the repair held up." "It did indeed," Williams confirmed. "Ms. Chen was quite impressed with your technical knowledge and ingenuity. She would like to discuss a matter of potential mutual interest with you and your family. Would it be possible for her to visit your farm tomorrow morning?" Jason's mind raced. What possible interest could the CEO of Horizon Innovations have in their struggling operation? Was this about his homemade sealant formula? Or perhaps she was simply making a courtesy call to thank him properly for the roadside assistance. "I'd need to check with my parents, but I don't see why not," Jason replied cautiously. "Excellent. Ms. Chen will arrive at approximately 9:30 a.m. She looks forward to seeing Whispering Pines Farm." Williams paused, then added, "One logistical note. Ms. Chen will be arriving by private aircraft. Is there a suitable landing area on or near your property?" Jason nearly dropped the phone. "Aircraft, you mean like a helicopter?" "A small jet, actually. The Gulfstream G650 requires approximately 3,000 feet of unobstructed, relatively flat terrain for a safe landing. Our pilots have reviewed satellite imagery of your area and believe the fallow field on the eastern side of your property would be suitable, with your permission." Still trying to process this surreal turn of events, Jason found himself agreeing to the arrangement. After providing some additional details about the property's layout, he hung up the phone and turned to find both his parents standing in the doorway, questions written across their faces. "You're not going to believe this," Jason began. News that Alexandra Chen, billionaire CEO of Horizon Innovations, would be landing a private jet on their property the next morning sent the Mitchell family into a flurry of activity. Robert immediately began reviewing their farm's financial records and operational plans, hoping to make sense of this unexpected interest from such a powerful figure. Martha set about preparing the farmhouse for a visitor, despite Jason's insistence that the meeting would likely take place in the barn or fields. "A billionaire is coming to our farm, Jason," Martha said firmly as she dusted picture frames that hadn't received such attention in months. "Whether she steps foot in this house or not, it will be properly cleaned." By morning, word had somehow spread through Oakridge that something unusual was happening at Whispering Pines farm. Old Pete Wilson, their nearest neighbor, drove his pickup over around 8, ostensibly to borrow a tool, but clearly fishing for information. Mayor Helen Rodriguez called to ask if the rumors about a corporate jet were true and whether the town should be preparing for some sort of announcement. Jason deflected as best he could, truthfully explaining that he had no idea why Alexandra Chen wanted to meet with them. As 9:30 approached, the Mitchell family gathered near the eastern field, which Miguel Ramirez, their part-time farmhand, had checked one final time for any debris that might interfere with a landing. The sky was clear blue, with just a few wispy clouds, perfect flying weather. At precisely 9:28, the distant hum of jet engines broke the morning quiet. Jason shaded his eyes against the sun, spotting the sleek white aircraft approaching from the southwest. With impressive precision, the Gulf Stream descended toward their field, touching down smoothly on the packed earth and rolling to a stop several hundred yards from where the family stood. "Well, I'll be damned," Robert breathed, his weathered face a mixture of awe and apprehension. The aircraft's door opened, extending stairs to the ground. Alexandra Chen emerged first, dressed more casually than when Jason had met her on the roadside, though her dark jeans, white button-down shirt, and tailored blazer still exuded effortless sophistication. Behind her came a man Jason assumed must be Derek Williams, carrying a leather portfolio, and two other individuals in business attire. As the group approached, Jason noticed something surprising in Alex's demeanor, a genuine excitement that didn't match the cool corporate image he had expected. She walked directly to him, extending her hand with a warm smile. "Jason Mitchell," she said, gripping his hand firmly. "Thank you for accommodating this rather dramatic arrival. I hope we didn't frighten your livestock." "The cows have seen stranger things," Jason replied with a small smile, finding his equilibrium despite the surreal situation. "May I introduce my parents, Robert and Martha Mitchell?" Alex greeted them both with the same warmth she had shown Jason, thanking them for allowing the visit on such short notice. After introducing her team, Derek Williams, her executive assistant, Dr. Sophia Patel, Horizon's head of sustainable agriculture research, and James Foster, the company's chief financial officer, Alex looked around at the expanse of Whispering Pines farm with keen interest. "Would you mind showing me your operation?" she asked. "I'd like to see what you built here." For the next 2 hours, the Mitchell family led their unexpected visitors on a comprehensive tour of Whispering Pines. Jason explained their crop rotation strategies, the heritage apple orchard his grandfather had planted, and the cattle operation that complemented their agricultural activities. Robert detailed their water conservation efforts and the challenges they faced with their aging irrigation system. Throughout it all, Alex asked insightful questions that revealed a deep understanding of agricultural practices. When they reached the equipment shed, Jason somewhat self-consciously showed her his workspace, where he repaired and modified their machinery. To his surprise, Alex examined his tools and projects with genuine interest, stopping at a tractor engine he had recently rebuilt with several custom modifications. "You've replaced the standard fuel injection system," she observed, bending to examine his work more closely. "And this looks like a custom air intake design." Jason nodded, impressed. By her technical knowledge, increases fuel efficiency by about 18% and reduces emissions. The manufacturer wanted $20,000 for their upgraded version, so I figured out how to build something better for under $3,000. "Remarkable," Dr. Patel commented, joining them at the engine. Have you documented your modifications? Just in my workshop notebook, Jason replied, gesturing to a well-worn journal on his workbench. Nothing formal. Alex and Dr. Patel exchanged a meaningful glance before the group continued to the final stop on their tour, the eastern fields that bordered the corporate farmland. Here, Robert explained their predicament, the need to upgrade their irrigation system, the loan rejections they had faced, and the difficult decision they were contemplating about selling this portion of their land. As Robert spoke, Jason noticed Alex studying not just the fields, but the neighboring corporate operation visible in the distance, her expression thoughtful. When the tour concluded, they gathered under the shade of an old oak tree near the farmhouse. "Thank you for such a comprehensive overview of your farm," Alex said. "Now, I imagine you're wondering why I'm really here." Martha offered refreshments, homemade, lemonade and fresh cookies, which the visitors gratefully accepted before Alex continued. "When Jason helped me on the roadside, I was actually in the area for a purpose related to Horizon's newest initiative," Alex began. "What I didn't mention was that I grew up on a family farm not unlike this one, about 100 miles south of here." This revelation surprised Jason. Nothing in the business profiles he'd read about Alexandra Chen had mentioned a farming background. "My father was a first-generation immigrant who saved everything to buy a small piece of land and start a vegetable farm," she continued. "He was innovative, resourceful, and determined, qualities I see in abundance here at Whispering Pines. But despite his hard work and ingenuity, we lost the farm when I was 16. The bank foreclosed, after 3 years of drought, made our operation untenable." Martha made a sympathetic sound, reaching out instinctively to touch Alex's arm in a gesture of understanding. "That experience shaped everything I've done since," Alex said, acknowledging Martha's gesture with a grateful smile. "I founded Horizon Innovations with a single mission: to develop technologies that would help family farms not just survive, but thrive in the face of climate change, corporate competition, and economic pressures." She gestured to Dr. Patel, who opened a tablet and displayed a satellite image of the region surrounding Oakridge. "Our newest initiative is called the Resilient Heartland Project. We're establishing partnerships with family farms throughout the Midwest to create demonstration sites for integrated, sustainable farming systems. These partnerships combine Horizon's technology with the generations of knowledge that families like yours possess." Robert leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. What exactly would such a partnership entail? Derek Williams produced several documents from his portfolio, passing them to Robert. In essence, Horizon would provide capital investment for infrastructure improvements, technological upgrades, and operational expansion. In return, Whispering Pines would become a demonstration and training site where other farmers could learn about integrated sustainable practices. The Mitchell family would maintain complete ownership and operational control, Alex emphasized. "This isn't about acquisition or corporate farming. It's about proving that family farms can be at the forefront of agricultural innovation while preserving their heritage and independence." Jason glanced at the documents his father was reviewing, noting the substantial financial figures involved. "Why us?" he asked, turning back to Alex. "There must be hundreds of farms that would jump at this opportunity." Alex's expression softened. "The moment you walked up to help me on that roadside, without hesitation and without expectation of reward, I saw something that reminded me of my father. Then, when you showed me your homemade sealant and explained how you developed it yourself because commercial products weren't adequate, I knew immediately you had the innovative spirit this project needs." She gestured around at Whispering Pines. "This farm has survived for 4 generations because the Mitchell family has consistently found ways to adapt while honoring tradition. You've already been implementing many of the practices we advocate, just without the capital resources to fully realize your vision. Plus," she added with a smile, You have that eastern field that's perfect for landing my jet. The last comment broke the tension that had been building, drawing laughs from everyone gathered under the oak tree. As the laughter subsided, Robert looked up from the documents with an expression of cautious hope. This proposal, he began carefully, it would not only solve our immediate financial concerns, but potentially secure Whispering Pine's future for generations to come. That's precisely the intention, Alex confirmed. But I want to be clear, this isn't charity or a loan, it's a strategic partnership. Horizon believes that farms like yours are essential to creating a sustainable agricultural system for the future. For the next hour, the discussion delved into specifics, the irrigation system upgrades that would reduce water usage by 60% while improving crop yields, the solar installation that would make the farm energy independent, the training, programs that would bring farmers from across the region to learn at Whispering Pines, and the research partnerships with agricultural universities that would document and analyze the results. As the meeting concluded and the visitors prepared to return to their aircraft, Alex pulled Jason aside for a more personal conversation. "There's something else you should know," she said, her voice lower now. "That neighboring corporate farm that's been pressuring local families to sell? Horizon just acquired it yesterday." Jason's expression must have revealed his alarm, because Alex quickly continued, "Not to expand it, but to transform it. If you accept this partnership, that land will become part of a larger demonstration of how corporate and family farms can coexist and even collaborate. We're planning to convert it back to more sustainable practices and eventually subdivide portions to help young farmers get started with manageable acreage." Jason was momentarily speechless, the implications of this revelation washing over him. "You're trying to reverse the corporate consolidation trend," Alex nodded. "In targeted regions, yes. The data shows that diverse, smaller-scale farming operations are actually more resilient and productive per acre when they have access to appropriate technology and support systems. Horizon's board has approved this strategy shift because we believe it's not just ethically right, it's economically sound in the long term." As they walked back to join the others, Jason found himself seeing Alexandra Chen in an entirely new light. The billionaire CEO was also the daughter of a farmer who had lost everything, someone who had never forgotten her roots and was now using her considerable resources to prevent others from suffering the same fate. Before boarding her jet, Alex shook hands with each member of the Mitchell family. "Take your time reviewing the proposal," she said. "This needs to be a decision your whole family supports. We'll be ready when you are." As the Gulfstream taxied down the makeshift runway and gracefully lifted into the sky, the Mitchell family stood watching in silence, each lost in their own thoughts about the extraordinary opportunity that had quite literally landed in their field. "Well," Robert finally said, turning to Jason with a bemused expression, "I guess it pays to help stranded motorists after all." Martha slipped her arm through her husband's. It wasn't just that Jason helped her. It's what she saw in him, in all of us. She saw what this farm could become. Jason's gaze lingered on the eastern horizon where the aircraft had disappeared. The unexpected encounter on the roadside had indeed set something remarkable in motion, but he sensed it was just the beginning of a much larger story, one that would not only transform Whispering Pines Farm, but potentially reshape the future of family farming in their region. "Let's go look at those documents more carefully," he suggested, his mind already racing with possibilities. "I have some ideas about how we could make this work even better than they've outlined." As the Mitchell family walked back toward their farmhouse, the spring breeze carried the promise of new growth, not just for the crops beginning to emerge in their fields, but for a vision of rural revitalization that had begun with a simple act of kindness on a country road. In the weeks that followed, Whispering Pines Farm became the center of intense activity. After carefully reviewing the partnership proposal with their family attorney, who admitted he'd never seen a deal so favorable to a small farm, the Mitchells had signed the agreement, setting in motion a transformation more rapid and far-reaching than any of them had anticipated. The first phase focused on infrastructure upgrades. Engineers and technicians from Horizon arrived to install a state-of-the-art irrigation system that used soil moisture sensors and weather prediction algorithms to apply water only where and when it was needed. Solar panels went up on the south-facing roof of the barn, while geothermal heating was installed beneath the farmhouse and outbuildings. Jason found himself working closely with Dr. Patel and her research team, helping to adapt Horizon's technologies to the specific conditions of Whispering Pines. His practical knowledge complemented their scientific expertise, and together they made modifications that improved performance beyond what either could have achieved alone. "You could have had a brilliant career in engineering," Dr. Patel remarked one afternoon as they fine-tuned the automated compost management system Jason had suggested. Jason smiled, adjusting a sensor placement. "I am having a brilliant career in engineering, just doing it on my own terms." News of the partnership spread quickly through Oakridge and surrounding communities. At first, there was skepticism. Stories of corporate takeovers disguised as partnerships were all too common in farming regions. But as weeks passed, and it became clear that the Mitchells remained firmly in control of their operation, curiosity replaced suspicion. Mayor Helen Rodriguez organized a town meeting where Alexandra Chen herself returned to explain the Resilient Heartland project to the wider community. The old community center was packed beyond capacity, with farmers from 3 counties driving in to hear what this billionaire had to say about the future of family farming. "I'm not here to tell you how to farm," Alex began, standing before the crowd without notes or slides. "Your families have been working this land for generations. You understand its needs and its potential better than any outside expert ever could. What I'm here to do is offer resources, technology and support that can help your operations thrive in a changing world." She went on to explain Horizon's vision of sustainable agricultural communities, networks of diverse family farms using advanced technology to reduce resource consumption while increasing productivity and resilience. Whispering Pines was the first partnership, she explained, but Horizon was prepared to invest in similar arrangements throughout the region. "The goal isn't to create cookie-cutter farms all using identical methods," she emphasized. "It's to provide each operation with tools tailored to their specific needs and approaches, while creating a community of innovation where knowledge and experience are freely shared." The skepticism didn't evaporate immediately, but as farmers toured Whispering Pines in the following days and saw the changes taking place, particularly the water efficiency improvements that addressed a concern shared by everyone in the drought-prone region, interest in the program grew. 6 neighboring farms signed partnership agreements within the first month. By the 3rd month, the waiting list had grown to include operations from across the state. What made the program particularly attractive was its flexibility. Unlike traditional corporate contracts that dictated specific crops or chemicals, Horizon's partnerships allowed farmers to maintain their autonomy while accessing resources previously available only to industrial-scale operations. For Jason, the most exciting development came when Alex approved his proposal to establish an innovation workshop on the farm. The spacious new building, constructed near his original equipment shed, was equipped with tools and technology that allowed him to develop and test new modifications for farm machinery. More importantly, the workshop became a collaborative space where farmers from around the region brought their equipment challenges and mechanical insights. Together, they adapted expensive commercial systems to work with older machinery, developed low-cost alternatives to proprietary components, and created entirely new tools specific to the region's needs. "This is becoming something I never imagined," Jason confessed to Alex during one of her regular visits to the farm. They stood on the newly constructed observation deck that overlooked the demonstration fields, where crops planted using different sustainable methods grew side by side for educational comparison. "What exactly?" Alex asked, genuinely curious. "A community of innovation," Jason replied, echoing her phrase from the town meeting. "My whole life I've watched farmers in this region working in isolation, each struggling with the same problems but rarely sharing solutions. Now there's this constant exchange of ideas flowing through Whispering Pines. Yesterday, a farmer from Cedar County spent 3 hours helping the Wilsons redesign their chicken coop ventilation system, while the Patel research team was collecting soil samples with the high school agriculture class." Alex smiled, clearly pleased with this outcome. "That's exactly what I hoped would happen. Real sustainability isn't just about resources and technology. It's about knowledge sharing and community resilience." 4 months into the partnership, the first formal training session was held at Whispering Pines. 30 farmers from across the Midwest spent 3 days learning about integrated water management techniques, from Horizon's high-tech monitoring systems to simple, low-cost modifications they could implement immediately. Jason led a popular workshop on equipment adaptation, showing participants how to modify standard machinery for improved efficiency and reduced environmental impact. To his surprise, Dr. Patel asked him to co-author a technical paper documenting these modifications for a leading agricultural journal. "You're becoming something of a celebrity in sustainable ag circles," Robert teased his son one evening as they reviewed the farm's dramatically improved financial projections. The partnership with Horizon had already reduced their operating costs by nearly 40%, while increasing yields in the first round of crops harvested under the new systems. Jason shrugged off the comment, uncomfortable with the attention his innovations were receiving. "I'm just doing what farmers have always done, finding practical solutions to everyday problems. The only difference is now there's a platform for sharing those solutions." But as modest as Jason remained about his contributions, others were taking notice. Universities began sending agricultural engineering students to intern at the innovation workshop. Equipment manufacturers sent representatives to observe the modifications being developed there, and other billionaire investors started exploring similar partnership models in different agricultural regions. 6 months into the partnership, Alexandra Chen returned to Whispering Pines with a new proposal. The success of the initial program had exceeded even Horizon's optimistic projections, and the company's board had approved an expanded initiative. "We'd like to establish what we're calling the Heartland Innovation Campus," Alex explained, as she walked with the Mitchell family through fields now lush with crops despite the region's continuing drought challenges. It would include an expanded training facility, research labs, student housing, and a technology incubator focused specifically on small farm applications. She pointed toward the corporate farmland Horizon had acquired adjacent to Whispering Pines. That property would be ideal for the campus facilities, with Whispering Pines remaining the working demonstration farm at the heart of the project. Robert looked thoughtful. "This would bring a lot of people and activity to a pretty quiet area. How do you think the community would respond?" Alex smiled. "Actually, Mayor Rodriguez has already been involved in the preliminary discussions. The economic impact study suggests the campus would create over 200 permanent jobs, not counting the construction phase or the businesses that would likely develop to serve the influx of visitors and students." Martha, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "What about housing? Oakridge doesn't exactly have a hotel and rental properties are limited." "That's actually an opportunity," rather than an obstacle, Alex responded. We've been looking at models of agritourism and educational homestay programs. Local families could host students and visitors, providing additional income streams while giving guests authentic experiences of rural life. Of course, we'd also build some on-campus housing for staff and longer-term visitors. Jason considered the proposal, imagining how the quiet countryside around Whispering Pines might change with the addition of the campus. Would this still be a working farm, or would it become more of a showpiece? It absolutely must remain a working farm, Alex insisted. The entire value of this model is that it's based in the practical realities of agriculture, not in theoretical ideals. We want students and visitors to see real farming in action, with all its challenges and daily demands. That authenticity is essential. As they discussed the details further, Jason found himself increasingly excited about the possibilities. The Innovation Campus would amplify everything they had been working toward, not just sustainable farming practices, but a revitalized rural community where young people could see meaningful futures. The decision wasn't made immediately. The Mitchell family spent weeks consulting with neighbors, community leaders, and the other partner farms that had joined the initial program. They visited similar educational facilities in other states, evaluating the impact on host communities. Throughout the process, Alex maintained her stance that this needed to be a community decision, not just a business arrangement. When concerns were raised about increased traffic or changes to the rural character of the area, she brought in planners to work with local residents on solutions that would preserve what they valued most about their community. By early fall, the decision was made. The Heartland Innovation Campus would move forward, with construction set to begin the following spring. The architectural plans, developed with input from the entire community, incorporated the rural vernacular of the region while introducing sustainable building technologies that would serve as teaching tools themselves. During the groundbreaking ceremony, which drew hundreds of visitors from across the country, Jason found himself standing beside Alexandra Chen as she prepared to address the crowd. The woman he had helped on the roadside just 8 months earlier now felt like a true partner and friend, someone who had not only transformed his family's farm, but had catalyzed a rebirth of hope throughout the region. Did you ever imagine this would be the result when you stopped to help me that day? Alex asked quietly as they waited for the ceremony to begin. Jason smiled, looking out over the gathered crowd. Farmers in work clothes mingling with university presidents in suits, local high school students chatting with agriculture officials, journalists interviewing community members about the changes already visible in the area. No, he admitted, I was just trying to help someone get back on the road, but my dad always taught me that good things come from doing the right thing, even when there's no obvious benefit. Alex nodded, her expression growing reflective. My father used to say something similar. He believed that generosity creates possibilities that calculation never can. As they stood there, surveying all that had grown from that chance encounter, neither could have fully articulated the ripple effects still to come. How the Heartland Innovation Campus would eventually influence agricultural policy at the national level, how the partnerships forged in Oakridge would create a model replicated in farming communities across the country, or how Jason's practical innovations would one day be taught in engineering programs worldwide. What they did know, with absolute certainty, was that meaningful change often began with the simplest acts of kindness, and that the future of farming would be written not by those who saw only profit in the land, but by those who recognized its deeper value as the foundation of community sustainability and human connection. For Jason Mitchell, the journey from fixing a stranded motorist's car to helping reshape the future of family farming had been unexpected, but somehow perfectly aligned with who he had always been. A person who fixed things, who saw potential. where others saw problems, and who understood that innovation without compassion was ultimately hollow. And for Alexandra Chen, the chance breakdown on a country road had reconnected her to her father's legacy in ways she had never anticipated, turning a strategic business initiative into something far more meaningful, a living embodiment of the vision that had inspired her since watching her family's farm slip away years before. Together, they had created something neither could have achieved alone, a bridge between tradition and innovation, between corporate resources and family farm values, between the wisdom of the past and the possibilities of the future. As winter settled over Whispering Pines Farm, the pace of activity slowed somewhat, though planning for the innovation campus continued unabated. The architectural firm hired by Horizon had set up a temporary office in Oakridge, where community members regularly stopped by to review updated plans and offer suggestions. Jason found himself drawn into these discussions more than he had expected. His practical understanding of farm operations proved valuable in designing spaces that would be both functional and educational. He worked closely with the architects to ensure that the campus would complement rather than overshadow the working farm at its center. "You have an unexpected talent for design," remarked Claire Reynolds, the lead architect, during one lengthy session where they had been refining the layout of the demonstration areas. "You balance function and aesthetics in a way that most engineers never manage to achieve." Jason shrugged off the compliment. "I just know what works on a farm and what doesn't. If it happens to look good too, that's a bonus." But privately, he found himself enjoying this new creative challenge. The same problem-solving mindset that had served him well in machinery modifications was proving equally valuable in spatial design and educational planning. Meanwhile, the farm itself was experiencing its first winter under the New Horizon partnership. The geothermal system had dramatically reduced heating costs for all the buildings, while the upgraded greenhouse, now powered by solar energy stored in advanced battery systems, allowed them to grow fresh produce year-round for the first time. Martha had seized this opportunity to start a winter CSA program, providing local families with fresh vegetables during months when such items typically had to be shipped in from warmer climates. The program had quickly reached capacity with a waiting list that surprised even the optimistic Robert. "People are willing to pay a premium for local food, even in winter," he observed one evening as they packed shares for the next day's pickup. "And when they come to get their vegetables, they're asking questions about how we're growing them, what other sustainable practices we're implementing, whether they could set up something similar on a smaller scale." This growing consumer interest in sustainable agriculture was an unexpected benefit of the Horizon partnership. As Whispering Pines became more visible in the community, it was serving as a model not just for other farmers, but for everyday people, reconsidering their relationship with food and the land that produced it. One snowy afternoon in January, as Jason was troubleshooting a monitoring system in the greenhouse, he received an unexpected visitor. Emma, his sister, had driven down from Chicago for the weekend, ostensibly to see their parents, but with another purpose as well. "I've been following everything happening here," she said as she examined the sophisticated hydroponic system he had been adjusting. "It's all over agricultural journals now, and even starting to make mainstream news. Influential billionaire partners with family farms to revolutionize rural economy." That was in the Tribune last week. Jason smiled wryly. "Sounds more dramatic than it feels from here. We're just trying to farm better while helping others do the same." Emma gave him a look he recognized from childhood, the one that said she saw through his attempt to downplay something significant. "Jason, what's happening here is remarkable. You know that, right? You're part of something that could change the trajectory of rural communities across the country." He continued working as they talked, making minute adjustments to the nutrient flow system. "Maybe," But we've got a long way to go before we know if this model is truly sustainable, economically, environmentally, and socially. One successful farm partnership doesn't prove much. But it's not just one farm anymore, Emma counted. It's 15 partner farms now, plus the innovation campus breaking ground in spring, and similar initiatives starting in 3 other states based on your model. Jason paused, considering her words. It was true that the program had expanded faster than anyone had anticipated. Regular reports from Horizon showed impressive metrics: increased crop yields, reduced resource consumption, improved farm incomes, and growing community engagement. But what statistics couldn't capture was the renewed sense of purpose he observed in fellow farmers who had been on the verge of giving up before joining the partnership. "I didn't come just to check up on the family," Emma continued after a moment. "I've been thinking about moving back." This caught Jason's attention completely. "To Oakridge, what about your hospital position?" Emma leaned against one of the hydroponic towers, her expression thoughtful. "The innovation campus will need healthcare professionals, won't it? Occupational health services for farmers, wellness, programs for staff and students, maybe even research on agricultural health impacts." Jason stared at his sister in surprise. Emma had been the first to leave Oakridge, determined never to be limited by rural life. Her career in hospital administration had taken her to major cities across the country before settling in Chicago. The idea that she might voluntarily return to their hometown seemed almost unthinkable. "You're serious about this," he realized. "I've already had preliminary discussions with Alex about it," Emma admitted. She mentioned the campus would need a health services director, someone who could develop programs specifically tailored to rural and agricultural contexts. "And you'd want that job?" Jason was still struggling to process this unexpected development. Emma smiled. "I've spent 15 years in urban healthcare systems, watching them fail to address the specific needs of rural communities. Now there's an opportunity to build something different from the ground up, right here where I grew up. Plus," she added more quietly, "Mark and the kids would love it here. The schools in our Chicago neighborhood are struggling, housing costs are insane, and we barely see natural landscapes except on vacation." As they continued talking, Jason began to understand that his sister's potential return represented something larger than a personal or professional decision. It symbolized a reversal of the decades-long exodus from rural communities like Oakridge, the possibility that meaningful innovation could create reasons for people to return, bringing with them education, skills, and perspectives gained elsewhere. This theme continued to develop as winter gave way to early spring. The construction crews arrived to begin work on the innovation campus, bringing an immediate economic boost to Oakridge. Local contractors were hired whenever possible, and the workers from outside the area needed housing, meals, and services that local businesses eagerly provided. Mayor Rodriguez convened regular community meetings to address both opportunities, and challenges arising from the rapid changes. When concerns were raised about preserving local culture amid growth, she established a heritage committee to document and celebrate Oakridge's agricultural history. When questions emerged about ensuring that economic benefits reached all community members, she worked with Horizon to establish training programs that prepared local residents for new jobs being created. This is how sustainable community development should work, Alex observed during one such meeting, addressing concerns directly, involving everyone in the process, and recognizing that economic growth without cultural preservation is ultimately hollow. Jason had been struck by how genuinely Alexandra Chen engaged with community issues. Unlike many corporate executives who might delegate such matters to public relations staff, she personally attended meetings, listened to concerns, and adjusted plans accordingly. Her background as the daughter of a farmer who had lost everything seemed to inform her approach. ensuring that progress served people rather than the other way around. As the first anniversary of their partnership approached, Horizon organized a celebration at Whispering Pines Farm. What began as a small gathering quickly expanded as interest grew, eventually becoming a day-long festival that drew visitors from throughout the region. Demonstration fields showcased the results of various sustainable growing techniques side by side. The Innovation Workshop displayed equipment modifications developed over the past year. Local food producers who had benefited from the expanding market for sustainable products offered samples and sold their goods from booths around the property. For Jason, the most meaningful moment came when a group of young farmers, most under 30 years old, gathered in the new education center to share their experiences as part of the partnership program. These were individuals who might otherwise have abandoned farming entirely, unable to compete in an industry increasingly dominated by corporate operations. Instead, they spoke with passionate optimism about innovations they were implementing, markets they were developing, and futures they were building on land that had been in their families for generations. "This is what success looks like," Alex said quietly, joining Jason at the back of the room as they listened. Not the financial metrics or the technology adoption rates, but this: young people seeing viable futures in rural communities. Jason nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The true measure of their work wasn't found in spreadsheets or academic papers, but in renewed hope and tangible opportunities for people who loved the land. As the festival continued into early evening, with local musicians performing on a stage set up near the old barn, Jason found himself standing with his family at the crest of the small hill that overlooked their property. From this vantage point, they could see both the historic farm buildings that represented their past and the construction site of the innovation campus that symbolized their future. "Your grandfather would be proud," Robert said, placing a hand on Jason's shoulder. He always believed that farming wasn't just about producing food, it was about nurturing community and caring for the land so it could sustain future generations. Martha nodded agreement. He used to say that the true value of what we grow can't be measured in bushels or dollars. It's measured in healthy soil, clean water, strong community ties, and children who understand where their food comes from. As twilight deepened and festival lights twinkled across the property, Jason reflected on how a simple roadside encounter had catalyzed such profound change. He had fixed Alexandra Chen's car without expectation of reward, simply because it was the right thing to do, the way his family had always approached life. That small act of kindness had opened a door neither of them could have anticipated, leading to a partnership that was transforming not just Whispering Pines Farm, but the entire concept of how rural communities might thrive in a challenging future. Looking out over the festival, Jason could see old Pete Wilson chatting animatedly with university researchers beside the innovation workshop he had initially viewed with suspicion. Mayor Rodriguez was leading a tour of visiting officials through the demonstration fields, explaining the community engagement process with justifiable pride. Emma was deep in conversation with Dr. Patel near the health services booth they had set up together, already planning programs for the campus that would break ground within weeks. And throughout the property, families from Oakridge and surrounding communities were experiencing a renewed sense of possibility, that their children might find meaningful futures here, that their agricultural heritage held value in a modern world, that innovation and tradition could strengthen rather than oppose each other. As stars began appearing in the darkening sky, Jason caught sight of Alexandra Chen standing somewhat apart from the crowd, looking out over everything their partnership had created. He made his way to her side, both of them silent for a moment, as they absorbed the scene before them. "You know, Alex finally said. "When my car broke down that day, I was actually on my way to meet with potential investors for the Resilient Heartland project. I was planning to pitch them on the concept of corporate family farm partnerships, but it was still mostly theoretical at that point." "Really?" Jason hadn't heard this detail before. She nodded. "I had spreadsheets and impact projections and case studies from similar initiatives in other industries. What I didn't have was a clear understanding of what would make it work on an actual farm, with real people whose livelihoods and legacies were at stake." Alex gestured toward the festival continuing below them. "Meeting you, seeing your ingenuity. With that engine repair, hearing about your family's commitment to this land, understanding the challenges you faced. It transformed an abstract business concept into something deeply personal. You reminded me why I started Horizon in the first place." Jason understood. For all her business acumen and technological expertise, what had made Alexandra Chen different from other corporate leaders was her connection to farming's human dimension, a connection rekindled through their chance encounter. "I think we both found something we needed that day," Jason replied. "You rediscovered your purpose, and I found a way to preserve what matters most to my family while embracing necessary change." As they stood there, watching the community celebration unfold beneath them, both recognized that the partnership they had forged represented something larger than either had initially imagined, a model for how tradition and innovation, rural wisdom and urban resources, personal values and economic realities might work in harmony rather than opposition. The journey had only begun, with the innovation campus yet to be built and countless challenges still to navigate. But the foundation they had established, built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and genuine community engagement, promised a future where family farms like Whispering Pines might not merely survive, but lead the way toward more sustainable and equitable food systems. As festival fireworks began illuminating the night sky, Jason Mitchell reflected that some of life's most significant journeys begin with the smallest steps, like walking across a field to help a stranded motorist. On a country road, 18 months had passed since that chance roadside encounter between Jason Mitchell and Alexandra Chen. The morning air carried the first hints of autumn as Jason stood at the edge of what they now called Innovation Field, watching the sunrise illuminate rows of experimental crops. Each section showcased different sustainable growing methods, from centuries-old companion planting techniques to cutting-edge precision agriculture guided by soil sensors and drones. This living laboratory had become the heart of the Heartland Resilience Network, drawing farmers and researchers from across the globe. The distant rumble of an approaching vehicle drew Jason's attention. A familiar electric truck emerged on the horizon, winding its way up the gravel road that connected the original Mitchell farmstead to the sprawling Heartland Innovation Campus that now occupied the adjacent property. Alex had been in Washington, D.C. for the past week, testifying before a congressional committee on rural revitalization. Her return meant decisions about the next phase of their rapidly expanding initiative would soon be finalized. As the truck pulled to a stop nearby, Jason noticed Alex wasn't alone. A distinguished-looking older man with silver hair emerged from the passenger side, surveying the landscape with keen interest. Even from a distance, Jason recognized Secretary Wilson, the newly appointed head of the USDA. This unannounced visit suggested their project had captured attention at the highest levels of government. "Quite a view you have here," Secretary Wilson remarked as Jason approached. "Alexandra has been singing your praises in Washington, but seeing this in person puts her testimony in proper context." Jason shook hands with the secretary, feeling strangely at ease despite the man's political stature. After months of hosting everyone from international agricultural delegations to corporate CEOs, Jason had developed a quiet confidence when explaining the vision behind what they were building. The real story is in the details, Jason replied, gesturing toward the experimental fields. We're tracking over 50 different cultivation methods with environmental sensors that update every 15 minutes. The data is publicly accessible to farmers worldwide through our open-source platform. Alex joined them, her tailored business suit contrasting with Jason's work clothes, but her smile as warm and genuine as ever. The secretary changed his schedule to see Whispering Pines firsthand after our presentation to the Rural Economic Development Committee. I hope you don't mind the surprise visit. The Mitchell family has always welcomed visitors, Jason assured. Them, though usually they arrive by car or bus rather than a government convoy. Secretary Wilson chuckled. I insisted on keeping the security detail minimal. Nothing disrupts genuine conversation faster than a dozen agents with earpieces. As they began walking the perimeter path that offered views of both the original Whispering Pines farm and the Innovation Campus, Jason couldn't help but reflect on the extraordinary journey of the past year and a half. What had begun as a partnership between one struggling family farm and a visionary CEO had evolved into something that was reshaping the landscape of rural America. The Heartland Innovation Campus now employed over 300 people, many of them local residents who had received specialized training through programs developed in partnership with regional community colleges. The original partnership model, preserving family farm ownership while providing access to capital, technology, and research support, had expanded to include 78 farms across 6 states. Most significantly, the exodus of young people from rural communities like Oakridge had not only slowed, but reversed. The integration of advanced technology with traditional agricultural practices had created new career paths that appealed to a generation raised on digital devices, but increasingly hungry for meaningful work connected to the land. Your father mentioned you're building a new processing facility, Alex said, as they passed the construction site, where crews were placing the foundation for a glass-walled structure. Tell the secretary about that vision. Jason nodded, warming to a subject that had become his personal passion. We're calling it the Value Chain Innovation Center. The fundamental problem for small farms isn't just production challenges. It's capturing more of the value in the food system. This facility will allow small producers to process, package, and market products directly to consumers under a regional brand identity. Secretary Wilson nodded thoughtfully. Removing the middlemen to create more sustainable economics for family farms. How will you handle distribution logistics? That's typically where these models break down. We're developing a cooperative model, Jason explained. Shared transportation, cold storage facilities strategically located throughout the region, and a digital marketplace that connects consumers directly with local food sources. The technology exists. It's the organizational structure that's been missing. They continued their tour past the education center, where a group of high school students was receiving instruction on soil microbiology from Dr. Patel. The teens were gathered around microscopes examining samples they had collected from different sections of the demonstration fields, their enthusiasm evident even from a distance. Those students are part of our agricultural entrepreneurship program, Jason explained. They spend one semester here developing projects that address real challenges in sustainable farming. Many have already launched small businesses based on their research. Secretary Wilson watched the students with evident approval. Young minds engaged with agriculture as a field of innovation rather than outdated tradition. This addresses one of our most persistent challenges in the sector. The tour continued through the equipment modification workshop, where Jason's earliest contributions to the partnership had evolved into a collaborative innovation hub. Farmers from across the Midwest regularly gathered here to develop adaptations for standard farm equipment, making it more efficient, environmentally friendly, and compatible with precision agriculture techniques. Everything developed here is open source, Jason explained, as they observed a team testing a modified sprayer system that dramatically reduced chemical drift. We document the designs, material requirements, and performance metrics so any farmer with basic mechanical skills can replicate them. Alex added, "The intellectual property model has been one of our most significant innovations. Horizon funds the development work, but doesn't patent the resulting designs. Instead, we've created an agricultural commons that serves everyone's interests." Secretary Wilson examined the modified equipment with genuine interest. "I started my career as a county extension agent in Iowa. Back then, farmers were natural inventors, constantly improving their equipment out of necessity. Somewhere along the way, we lost that culture of practical innovation as agriculture became more corporate." "That's exactly what we're trying to restore," Jason agreed. "The knowledge exists in farming communities. It just needs the right conditions to flourish." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Martha Mitchell, who had spotted the distinguished visitor from the farmhouse and hurried over with her customary hospitality. "Secretary Wilson, you must join us for lunch. I've prepared a spread featuring produce entirely from partner farms in our network." The secretary accepted gratefully, and soon they were seated at the large harvest table on the farmhouse porch. The simple meal showcased the exceptional quality of food being produced through the sustainable methods developed at Whispering Pines. Heirloom tomatoes with complex flavors unobtainable in mass-market varieties. Crusty bread made from heritage grains grown and milled locally. Cheese from a dairy farm that had been on the verge of bankruptcy before joining the partnership program. Robert Mitchell joined them, bringing decades of farming wisdom to the conversation. "The difference in this model," he explained, between bites, is that it recognizes farming as both a business and a way of life. Previous approaches either romanticized agriculture without addressing economic realities, or treated it purely as a commodity business while ignoring its cultural importance. "That's precisely what impressed me about Alexandra's testimony," Secretary Wilson replied. "The data on economic impacts is compelling, but the preservation of rural community fabric is equally significant." As lunch concluded, the conversation turned to the future expansion of their model. The secretary revealed that the USDA was considering adopting elements of the Resilient Heartland approach for a national rural revitalization initiative. The combination of private investment, technological innovation, and respect for agricultural heritage had proven remarkably effective in creating sustainable rural economies. "We're particularly interested in your community engagement methodology," he noted. "Most top-down initiatives fail because they don't adequately involve local residents in the planning process." Alex nodded in agreement. "That's been fundamental to our approach. Every partnership begins with listening sessions where community members express their priorities and concerns. The resulting plans vary significantly based on local needs and values." As the secretary's aides signaled that they needed to depart for the next appointment, Jason walked with Alex and their distinguished visitor toward the waiting vehicles. The autumn sun illuminated the landscape, showcasing the harmonious blend of traditional agricultural elements and modern sustainable design that characterized the expanded Whispering Pines operation. "Thank you for showing me what's possible when vision meets practical knowledge," Secretary Wilson said, shaking Jason's hand warmly. "You've created something here that could transform rural America if replicated thoughtfully." After the government convoy departed, Jason and Alex walked toward the ridge that offered the best view of both the original farm and the innovation campus. They often came here to reflect on the journey and discuss future directions away from the constant activity that now characterized their daily operations. The secretary was genuinely impressed, Alex observed. That could translate into significant federal support for expanding the model. Jason nodded, though his expression remained thoughtful. The attention is gratifying, but I've been thinking about something lately. With all these visitors and delegations studying what we've built, there's a risk of people trying to replicate the physical infrastructure without understanding the underlying principles. Alex raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What principles do you think are most essential? Jason considered the question carefully. First, that innovation has to grow from authentic needs and conditions, not external prescriptions. Second, that sustainable agriculture isn't just about environmental practices, but about creating systems where family farms can thrive economically. And third, perhaps most importantly, that community connection is as vital as technological advancement. You should write that down, Alex suggested with a smile. The Whispering Pines Manifesto. Jason laughed at the grandiose term. Hardly a manifesto, just observations from watching what's worked and what hasn't over these past months. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Emma Mitchell, who had spotted them from the healthcare facility she now directed. After relocating her family from Chicago, Emma had established a rural health innovation program that addressed the unique medical challenges facing agricultural communities. Her integrative approach, combining preventive care with occupational safety and mental health support, had already gained national recognition. "There you are," Emma called as she approached. "The Australian delegation has arrived early. They're particularly interested in the drought-resistant cultivation methods and how we've integrated them with water conservation infrastructure." "I'll head down," Jason responded. "Will you be joining us for the tour, Alex?" "Actually," Alex replied, checking her watch, "I need to finish reviewing the expansion proposals before tomorrow's board meeting. We have applications from 23 new farms wanting to join the network, and each requires careful consideration." As Emma and Jason headed toward the visitor center to meet their international guests, Alex remained on the ridge, taking a moment to appreciate the landscape before her. The transformation of Whispering Pines Farm had exceeded even her ambitious vision, evolving from a single partnership into a model that could potentially reshape rural economies worldwide. Yet what gave her greatest satisfaction wasn't the impressive infrastructure or the recognition from government officials, but the human stories unfolding across the partner farms. Families who had been on the verge of losing multi-generational operations were now thriving. Young people who had left for urban opportunities were returning, bringing fresh perspectives while honoring agricultural traditions. Communities that had been declining for decades were experiencing revitalization built on sustainable foundations. As Alex finally turned to walk back toward her office in the campus headquarters, she reflected on how a simple act of roadside kindness had catalyzed this remarkable journey. Jason Mitchell could easily have pointed her toward the nearest service station that morning, rather than offering his help. That decision, made without calculation or expectation of return, had revealed a character and ingenuity that inspired her to reimagine her entire approach to agricultural investment. The afternoon passed in a flurry of meetings and presentations. The Australian delegation toured the facilities with Jason and Dr. Patel, particularly interested in water conservation. Techniques developed for increasingly arid conditions. Local farmers gathered in the equipment workshop to discuss modifications for the upcoming harvest season. University researchers presented preliminary findings from field trials comparing different soil regeneration approaches. As evening approached, bringing a spectacular sunset over the demonstration fields, the day's visitors departed, leaving the campus to settle into the quieter rhythms of night operations. Automated monitoring systems continued gathering data from sensor networks distributed throughout the grounds. Graduate students conducted experiments in the research greenhouses, taking advantage of specialized equipment available nowhere else. In the region, Jason found Alex in the observation lounge atop the main building, reviewing documents on her tablet while gazing out at the illuminated landscape below. The Innovation Campus utilized subtle ground lighting that preserved the night sky visibility while providing necessary illumination for security and ongoing operations. "Productive day," Jason commented, settling into the chair beside her. The Australian group wants to establish a sister campus in Victoria. They're offering research exchange opportunities for our team. Alex set down her tablet, turning her attention fully to Jason. "That's the 4th international replication proposal. This month, we need to develop criteria for these partnerships to ensure quality control while promoting appropriate adaptation to local conditions." Jason nodded, understanding her concern. The resilient heartland model was increasingly viewed as a template for agricultural revitalization worldwide, creating both opportunity and responsibility. "What we need is a training program for implementation teams, focused more on principles and community engagement methods than on specific technologies." "Exactly," Alex agreed. "I've been thinking along similar lines. Perhaps a fellowship program that brings potential project leaders here for 6 months of immersive learning before they return to establish programs in their own regions." Their conversation continued as they discussed the challenges of scaling their approach responsibly. Unlike conventional business expansions that emphasized standardization and centralized control, the resilient Heartland network thrived on local adaptation and distributed decision-making within a framework of shared values. Eventually, their discussion turned to the event that had occupied much of their planning efforts over recent weeks, the upcoming Future of Farming Summit that would bring leaders from agricultural, environmental, economic, and policy sectors to the Innovation Campus for 3 days of intensive dialogue and collaboration. "The governor just confirmed she'll deliver the opening address," Alex noted. "And the international participation has exceeded our expectations, with delegates from 27 countries registered so far. We should make sure the focus remains on practical applications rather than theoretical discussions," Jason suggested. "What makes our approach distinct is its grounding in daily farming realities." Alex agreed, adding, "Let's ensure significant participation from partner farmers, not just as attendees, but as presenters and discussion leaders. Their voices and experiences are what give credibility to the model." As their planning session concluded, Jason stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, observing the patterns of light and shadow across the property. From this elevation, he could see both the Innovation Campus with its futuristic architecture and sustainable design elements, and the original farmhouse where his parents still lived, its warm lights emanating a sense of continuity amid transformation. "Sometimes I still find it hard to believe," he admitted quietly. 18 months ago, we were discussing which fields we might need to sell just to keep operating. Now we're hosting international delegations and advising government agencies." Alex joined him at the window, her reflection visible in the glass. "What I find most remarkable isn't the physical transformation or the attention we're receiving. It's the community that's developed around this vision. People from different backgrounds and disciplines finding common purpose in creating something sustainable and meaningful." The next morning arrived with unexpected weather, a gentle rain that had not been forecast but was welcomed by everyone involved in agriculture. Jason woke before dawn, as was his habit, making his way to the Innovation Center's control room, where environmental data from across the partner farms network was continuously monitored. Miguel Ramirez, who had been promoted from farmhand to operations director for the demonstration fields, was already there, studying rainfall patterns on the large central display. "Perfect timing," he observed as Jason entered. "The winter cover crops we planted last week will get an excellent start with this moisture." They reviewed the data together, noting how the precision irrigation systems across the network had already adjusted to the natural rainfall, conserving water resources while maintaining optimal soil moisture levels. This dynamic responsiveness represented the integration of traditional farming wisdom, understanding that natural systems require flexibility rather than rigid control, with advanced technology that could implement that wisdom at scale. As morning advanced, Jason led a workshop for local high school students participating in the agricultural entrepreneurship program. These teenagers, who might once have dismissed farming as irrelevant to their future, were now developing sophisticated projects involving soil science, water management, and sustainable livestock practices. The difference between problem and opportunity often depends on perspective, Jason told them as they gathered in the education center. What seems like a limitation can become an innovation catalyst if you approach it with creativity and persistence. He shared the story of his homemade equipment modifications, explaining how financial constraints had forced him to develop solutions that proved more effective than expensive commercial alternatives. The students, already familiar with this narrative from community law, nevertheless listened attentively, recognizing that Jason Mitchell had become something of a legend in agricultural innovation circles. After the workshop, Jason joined a video conference with partner farmers from across the network. These monthly sessions allowed participants to share challenges, successes, and adaptations they had developed for the core technologies. Today's discussion focused on preparations for the upcoming summit, with farmers suggesting topics and formats that would best communicate their experiences to visiting delegates. "We need to be honest about both successes and failures," emphasized Sarah Gunderson, whose dairy operation in Minnesota had been one of the first to join the network. "The power of this model isn't that it's perfect, but that it's constantly evolving through collective learning." The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Governor Lawrence had arrived a day earlier than planned for the summit, hoping to tour the facilities without media attention before her official appearance. Jason and Alex accompanied her through the demonstration fields, research facilities, and community spaces that comprised the expanded operation. "What impresses me most," the governor commented as they walked, "is how you've integrated economic development with environmental stewardship and cultural preservation. Most initiatives manage to address one or perhaps two of these dimensions, but rarely all three simultaneously." Alex explained their integrated approach, emphasizing that sustainability required addressing ecological, economic, and social factors as interconnected elements rather than separate considerations. "We've found that optimizing for only one dimension inevitably creates problems in the others. The art is finding solutions that generate multiple benefits across all three." As evening approached, the Mitchell family gathered for their weekly dinner, a tradition they had maintained despite the transformative changes around them. Martha had insisted from the beginning that regardless of how expansive the operation became, they would preserve this time for family connection. Robert and Martha, Jason and Emma, along with Emma's husband Mark and their two children, assembled around the farmhouse table that had served 4 generations of Mitchells. The conversation flowed naturally between personal updates and reflections on the rapidly evolving project that had transformed their lives. "Sometimes I worry about how quickly everything is changing," Martha admitted, as they enjoyed her heritage apple pie for dessert. "Then I remind myself that what matters most Our connection to this land and to each other remains constant despite the transformation around us. Robert nodded agreement. What gives me greatest satisfaction isn't the recognition or even the financial security we've gained. It's knowing that Whispering Pines will continue for another generation and that we're helping other family farms achieve the same continuity. Emma's children listened to these conversations with the half-interest, typical of their ages, not yet fully appreciating the significance of what their family had helped create. But their very presence at the table, having relocated from urban Chicago to rural Missouri, represented a reversal of the demographic trends that had been emptying rural communities for decades. After dinner, as twilight settled over the farm, Jason walked alone to the ridge, overlooking both the original property and the innovation campus. This evening ritual gave him time to process the day's events and maintain perspective amid the whirlwind of activity that now characterized his life. The rain had cleared, leaving the air fresh and the visibility exceptional. From this vantage point, he could see lights beginning to illuminate the campus buildings as night shift researchers continued their work. The original red barn, now restored and repurposed as a visitor center, stood as a reminder of the farm's heritage amid the modern facilities that surrounded it. In the distance, the town of Oakridge glowed against the darkening horizon. Once in danger of becoming another dying rural community, it now buzzed with renewed vitality. The main street featured new businesses catering to campus visitors and staff, a farm-to-table restaurant, a craft brewery using local grains, a cooperative marketplace showcasing products from network farms, and various service establishments supporting the growing population. Most encouraging to Jason was the housing development on the town's eastern edge, where young families were building homes and putting down roots. Many were professionals who had discovered they could work remotely while enjoying the quality of life offered by a revitalized rural community. Others had come specifically for opportunities created by the Innovation Campus and its expanding influence. As stars began appearing in the clear night sky, Jason reflected on the journey that had begun with a simple roadside encounter. His decision to help Alexandra Chen that morning had sprung from values instilled by his parents and grandparents, the belief that generosity and integrity mattered more than immediate benefit or convenience. That small act of kindness had opened a door neither of them could have anticipated, leading to a partnership that was transforming not just one family farm, but potentially the future of rural communities nationwide. The summit, scheduled to begin tomorrow, would mark an important milestone in that journey, an opportunity to share their model with influential leaders who could help scale its impact far beyond what Jason and Alexandra could accomplish alone. Yet even as they embraced this broader influence, Jason remained committed to the core principles that had guided them from the beginning: respect for agricultural heritage, commitment to genuine sustainability, and belief in the vital importance of family farms as the foundation of healthy food systems and rural communities. As he turned to walk back toward the farmhouse, Jason noticed Alex approaching along the ridge path. They often found themselves drawn to this place at day's end, their independent reflections converging just as their distinct perspectives and talents had converged to create something neither could have achieved alone. "Ready for tomorrow?" Alex asked as they fell into step together. "As ready as we'll ever be," Jason replied with quiet confidence. "Not because we have all the answers, but because we've built something authentic that speaks for itself." They walked in companionable silence toward the lights of the farmhouse, where the Mitchell family legacy continued, amid a transformation they had never imagined, but had embraced with courage and wisdom. Behind them, the Innovation Campus stood as testament to what becomes possible When visionary resources meet practical ingenuity, when corporate capital serves community values, and when the future builds thoughtfully upon the foundation of the past. What had begun with a farmer's son stopping to help a stranded motorist had evolved into a movement with potential to reshape the landscape of rural America, proving once again that acts of simple kindness can spark extraordinary change when they connect people of purpose and goodwill across the divisions of wealth, background and experience that too often keep transformative partnerships from forming. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.